I'm going to be reacting to this. This happened about, I think, 2 years ago, but this has been going on for a while, and I know that it's been going on for a while because I have friends that went out to Los Angeles, California. Some people that I know even lived out in Los Angeles, California. So this abuse that Black Americans are taking right now between either the African blacks or the Caribbean blacks, this has been happening a long time. So let's just listen to this, and it's gonna be heartbreaking to hear, but this is what a lot of the black people had to go through working in a warehouse that was ran by Latino people. Let's get it.
Two of the largest race discrimination cases investigated by the federal government in the past decade allege widespread abuse of hundreds of black employees at warehouses in Southern California's Inland Empire region.
The N-word, the imagery, the nooses.
Writing on the walls calling the silverback gorillas.
I heard the workers call me Negra Fea, the N-word in Spanish, and Aunt Jemima.
I'm Gustavo Arellano. You're listening to The Times, essential news from the LA Times. It's Monday, August 22nd, 2022. Anti-black bias on the job is sadly nothing new, but as the Latino population across the U.S. and especially California continues to grow, anti-black bias by Latinos in the workplace, it's drawing renewed scrutiny. Margot Roosevelt covers California's economic, labor, and workplace issues for the Los Angeles Times. Margot, welcome back.
Thank you, Gustavo.
In this day and age, people cite white supremacy as the primary motivator in discrimination, but what's going on between black and brown warehouse workers in the Inland Empire?
About half of the imported goods from Asia that Americans buy all across the United States come through the ports of LA and Long Beach. And much of them are trucked to warehouses in the Inland Empire. So in Riverside and San Bernardino counties, you have a huge number of low-wage, blue-collar jobs. So the EEOC, that's the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, is the federal government's main civil rights agency, and it filed suit against the companies that ran two huge warehouses after hundreds of complaints from black workers that they were harassed with the N-words and other slurs by fellow workers and discriminated against by their bosses. These two warehouses were run by giant companies, Ryder Integrated Logistics and Cardinal Health, and a lot of their workers were hired and jointly supervised by an Orange County temp firm, Kimco Staffing Services, and a Glendale temp firm, Apple One. When I read through the court documents, I was surprised to see Spanish language slurs listed. So I went out to the Inland Empire to interview some of the black workers who had filed complaints, and they all said the same thing, which was that the abuse and discrimination came from Latino workers and supervisors. The harassment was really ugly.
Now I've heard a lot of this, and especially the situation where there was a lot of Mexicans, allegedly Mexicans firebombing black people's homes in California, and a lot of black people felt victim to that, allegedly. Now, are all Mexicans like this? No. I have good Mexican friends that don't even want to be a part of this. But this has happened in L.A. Let them finish talking.
I started working for the warehouse, I felt unwelcome, like I wasn't wanted there. So, Regina Mccorkel was the first black worker to file a complaint with the EEOC over her treatment at the Ryder Logistics warehouse. Usually people are nice to new employees, but workers ignored me. They stood in groups, they were pointing at me and laughing and talking loudly about me and other employees in Spanish. The workplace was so segregated. She told me that she was a temp worker, and like many of the workers there, And at the end of each shift, their names would be on a list to work the next day.
Black workers were picked last or not at all, so they were sent home. I needed the work, but I couldn't get the hours when black employees kept being the last ones chosen. But I hung on. I worked really hard to move up. I thought the work environment was bad before, but it got way worse after I got picked to be a quality auditor. The attitude of the line workers shifted immediately, and they began to be openly hostile towards me. Like, they just seemed insulted that a black woman was checking their work. I heard the workers call me Negra Fea, the N-word in Spanish, and Aunt Jemima. They called me a pickaninny and referred to me as a black nanny and threatened me and other black workers with violence. This became so unbearable.
And Regina complained to at least 6 Ryder and Kimco managers who were all Latinos about the slurs.
The manager just told me to get back to work, and the staffing agency told me there was nothing they can do about it. One manager made me confront the woman leading the harassment and said it was just her culture, as if I should accept it. At some point, the warehouse employee...
And you know the crazy thing about what she just said? I've heard that from a lot of Hispanic people as their culture to really disrespect and dislike black American people.
Told to sign a no bullying policy, but that just seemed to make the harassment get worse.
So eventually, after her complaints, she was fired, and the EEOC said she was retaliated against for the fact that she did complain.
During that year, while this was going on, it hit me hard. My self-esteem took a hit. I felt inadequate. I felt so excited about the chance of a permanent position. On one level, I was told I was doing great, that I was going to be promoted. I felt that if I kept going and kept grinding, that I would be protected because I was an asset to the company. But that didn't happen. And that's when I was fired.
Wow, that's really sad. What were some of the other stories you heard from black workers who were inside these warehouses?
So Benjamin Watkins worked 4 years at the Ryder Logistics warehouse, and he said Hispanic workers had their own production lines and the black workers had to be on a different line.
One time, and
So this is just like slavery. You separate the Hispanics from the black, but because it's ran by an Hispanic set of people, you disrespect the black people. Oh, man, this is horrible even to hear.
older female worker called to me, "Hey monkey, yeah you," and waved a banana at me. She did that in the break room while everybody was watching. A group of women burst out laughing. I tried to respond to her and she just pretended to not understand English. That was in front of all these workers. After years, I couldn't work there anymore. I left.
So there was basically segregation.
The black workers also were doing the heaviest or the hard manual labor, heavy lifting, and the non-black workers were doing the lights, easy work, light work. We were working these long hours and sweating, and the supervisors wouldn't let the black workers get water or take bathroom breaks. We had to wait. They said, "You're big and black, you can keep working."
One of the workers I spoke to was Leon Simmons.
I grew up in a different era, in the 60s. But even I never experienced racism like that, where someone would just say the N-word to your face.
Leon Simmons grew up in Compton. He had Mexican-American friends, and he couldn't believe when he got to this warehouse that he was hearing what he was hearing from his Latino co-workers.
This whole thing, it really affected me. Every time, even talking about it now, affects me. You get emotional, you get angry, you don't want to have to confront people about this. I was always thinking I'm going to lose my job if I say too much.
He was supposedly hired to drive a cherry picker, but those vehicles were given to Latino workers and black workers who, even when they had certifications, were kept off of the cherry pickers and were made to be floor pickers, which paid less and was much more difficult a job. And one of the things that Leon told me was that the black workers were forced to work overtime, like up to 14 and 16 hours a day, but the Latino workers were allowed to go home after their regular shift, which is 8 to 10 hours.
You're a temp. You know, they always throw that in your face. So if they, you know, they work us 13, 14 hours and you're tired, you complain, man, can I leave now? You know, well, you can leave if you want to, but you might not get called back tomorrow.
And he said after his shift, the Latino supervisors would make him clean up the trash while everybody else was sent home.
They did that all the time.
The slurs that Leon experienced just completely, he said, messed him up.
Every day when I go in the bathroom, there's racial graffiti almost every day in there. Someone wrote, N-word stink, go back to Africa, and also writing on the walls calling us silverback gorillas. The other black workers would also notice the graffiti. And we would go in there and cross it out with a marker. And 2 days later, it would be right back. We went and complained to the supervisors, take them in there, they would see it too. They used the same restrooms as we did. And it really made me upset. One time I came out of the restroom and asked a group of people who did it, and they looked at me and started laughing.
Finally,
I'm going to cut it off right there because it's very long, but the tension is getting more and more crazier between blacks and Latinos, and now the blacks are starting to, pull away, and now the Latins are asking for help because of this deportation thing. But that's so disgusting. I put this video up here to let people know that LA has a problem, and it always has a problem, been a problem between the Mexicans and the blacks. And they said it's in their culture. That's not the first time I've heard this. If you're from Mexico, Ecuador, any Latin country, majority Mexico and Ecuador, and if you are subscribed to me, let me know if that really is in your culture to hate black Americans. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on what you think. This is Big Hawk, Yonkers Native Street Talk. To the next video, you have a good one.